Let's get started then, guys. Super. So good afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you are in the world. This is a webinar to go through the Qlik Talend Cloud. Myself, Lee Connor, Technical Director, and Noel.
Yeah, welcome along, everyone. Good to be here. I'm pre-sales at Catalyst and happy to talk you through Qlik Talend Cloud today.
Just before we start that, let's go through the agenda. So hopefully you've had a copy of this. We're going to go through data warehouse automation, how you do more complicated pipelines in that lineage, and how you show lineage within the Qlik catalog. Data quality, very briefly. We won't have time to cover all of that. We'll do that in a second one. And then finally, question and answers. So if you've got any questions, please put them into the questions chat in Zoom. That would be great. We'll pick those up at the end. Before we jump in, just in case you don't know who Catalyst are, Catalyst BI, we got the strap line, we like to challenge organizations, unlock insights, etc. What does that mean? Basically, we love data and we like to make sure that you as an end user of data get real value out of that. The way that we do that really is in three different areas, I suppose. They're all highly connected, but data management, so integration and warehouse creation, data analytics, so the dashboarding, visualization of that, and then finally the predictive and generative of data science. So that's our kind of main areas, and you can see the vendors there as well, to do the vendor splash. We're focusing on SaaS, Qlik SaaS today. Mainly, we can see the full end-to-end SaaS platform here. As you can see, the grey out of the areas that we're not covering today, but we are covering move that data, transform it, trust it, and then land it into a target. Noel, do you want us to go over kind of the high-level view of what Qlik Talend Cloud is and what we're going to cover and what we're going to see in your fantastic demos, hopefully, today?
Yeah, thanks, Lee. Actually, I think it's really important that we do just talk about this from an overview perspective before we launch in, because it's really useful to understand the kind of the boundaries of where some of this activity is taking place between data that sits on premise behind secure firewalls or wherever that would be, and what takes place in Qlik Cloud. So if we look at a typical organization and environment, you can see we've got some source databases, target data warehouses. They may be on-prem or in the cloud, but they will be secure. They will be behind your firewall. So how do we maintain that security? So to start with, we insert a Linux box into your environment. And that's running a replication engine, which is known as Data Gateway Data Movement. So that's an application provided by Qlik, and that sits inside your environment. So none of the data is ever getting out kind of into the internet and maintaining security of your data. So what does the process actually look like? Well, the replication engine connects to your source systems and it does a full unload of the tables, meaning basically it takes a snapshot of all the records as they are, and then it will push them into your target data warehouse. So effectively, you've got a full replication of that data at that point in time. Then, depending on which database technology you're using, there's a few different interfaces and methods that used, whether it be reading redo logs or connecting directly to change tables. But effectively, we'll start doing a continuous feed of changes. So it's looking for any updates, inserts, deletes, changes in table structure. So it's taking all of those and it's replicating them into a separate table within your data warehouse. So effectively, you've got a snapshot of your data as it was at the point that you started the process, and then everything that has happened from a transactional perspective is recorded into the data warehouse in the change tables. And then basically, the Qlik Talend Cloud views will allow you to recompile that data back into a single table, viewing the data as it stands at any point in time. So the benefits of that, and there are many, is that it's a really low impact solution. So you're not putting agents onto your database server that are sucking up a few percentage points of CPU. None of that going on. You're just reading transactional logs, so very low impact. You're also able to recreate those transactional logs. If you stop the ingestion, stop the feed, and then restart it, it knows exactly where it was. And because you're just dripping the information through as it's happening, you're not waiting for those large reloads to complete, so you can guarantee that that data will be delivered at the point that you need it. And you can do all of this with no code as well. So all of the data warehouse build plus any transformation that you do is all done with no code. So all that's going on inside your warehouse. So that's the execution plane, whereas Qlik Talend Cloud sits effectively as your orchestration, design, and management plane. So the Talend Cloud is managing the data gateway, and it's doing that through an outbound connection from inside the network. So the data gateway is always talking outbound to your Qlik Talend Cloud to create an even more secure environment, meaning you can't push your way into that environment. Effectively, Talend Cloud, Qlik Talend Cloud then is acting as a design interface to allow you to build those replication functions and pipelines, and it's passing the instruction set down to the replication engine. So there's no data moving into Talend Cloud. It's just instructions about what data to get from your databases, when to get it, and where do you want to land it. So it's acting there as the orchestrator. And then once your data is into your target data warehouse, you can use it to design the transformation. And it's the way it does that transformation is it pushes SQL down into the target data warehouse, meaning that no data is ever leaving that environment. You're just sending instructions down about how to manipulate that data. So very, very secure. It's worth mentioning as well, from an admin perspective, there's quite a few moving parts there inside the execution plane on-prem. But from a day-to-day perspective, you don't actually need to touch any of those. All of it can be administered through Qlik Talend Cloud, and you can manage the connections to databases, all the other functions that you can see here, all managed directly in Qlik Talend Cloud. It's got all the features that you'd expect to see from an enterprise-ready solution. So you can authenticate users, you can use role-based access control to determine who gets what role, what functions and they can achieve within the platform, and you can use spaces to add security to that and make sure that engineers or administrators can only work with data sets to which they're authorized. So, very much as you'd expect, enterprise-ready. You've got all the value-added features there, such as lineage, data catalog, allowing you to understand how data has been processed and to be able to serve that up to end users as data consumers, and allow them to see what data has been prepared and where that's come from. Excuse me, let me get that out of the way. And then additionally, you've got monitoring within that. So you can actually monitor the jobs live and see any transformations taking place, what records are being fed through into your target data warehouse. And also part of that is the alerting. So it can automatically send emails or alerts to your mobile application should any task fail. So I think it's really important to understand from what we can see there that data is never coming outside your network. All you're doing is creating instructions in Qlik Talend Cloud that are then passed down to the replication engine to process that for you.
So that's really helpful, Noel. I think that diagram is great, nice and simplistic. What if I've got a mission critical transactional database that my DBA is saying that I can't touch? I can't run a SQL statement even if it's with read only, no locks, all that kind of stuff. Is this going to help me, or how does that work?
Yes, absolutely, Lee. So we can see from the left-hand side of the diagram there is that we only touch that transactional table once on that initial load. So we take a copy of it, obviously arrange a maintenance window to allow that. And then we never touch it again because at that point we just start reading from the change logs. So that's typically held in a different database, might even have its own compute, but even if it doesn't, then it's going to be a low impact read of that table because we're looking at very small changes there. So absolutely, we never need to go back to that source table after the initial load.
Yeah, that's good to know. No, I'd love to see this in action. Is that possible? To see how quickly we can see how quickly you can actually move that data from your source to destination table.
Yes, Lee, absolutely. We're going to look at that now. So we prepared a couple of demos here that we're going to work through. So I'm going to look right at the start of that process. How do we create a connection into a database that is reading real-time data. So it's leveraging CDC and replicating that data into our data warehouse, able to consume into the next part of the process. So that's what we're going to do here. And let's just step into Qlik Talend Cloud now. So it's all web-based, as you can see here. I'm logged into Qlik Talend Cloud in the data integration side of the application. It's the same platform that we use for Qlik Analytics, but I'm just focusing on this today. I'm going to start with a new project. So project is kind of the bucket where we'll put the work into here. I'll call it Data Landing 101. I can choose whether to make it a data pipeline or a replication task only, so whether it goes through the transformation or just copies data. And then we can specify where we want to land our data into. So we can see from the filter pane over in the left, we can land data into all the big hitters in terms of cloud vendors. I'm just going to load into Snowflake because that's what I'm familiar with, and I'll create my project here. The demo gods are against me. I'm just going to change my name to let's have another go at that. I'll just test my connection. Okay, so test connection failed. So luckily I created a backup connection, which also failed. So I'm just going to double check that my data gateways are running. Okay, that is running correctly. So let me just
Don't worry, Noel, we'll edit this out when it goes to YouTube.
okay, success. Wow.
Excellent. That's live debug. That's live debug. I like it.
Okay, so we've created a project, and basically a project is, as I mentioned, it's a bucket where we put all our work in. So it's not necessarily connected to a specific data source, but what we are saying is that we're landing data into a specific target. And we're going to feed it all through the same pipeline. So when I onboard data, it will show me a list of data connections I've set. So I've actually got a Postgres database that's running CDC data. I'm going to load data out of this. So I click next. It shows me a screen, says, what data do you want? I'll just pick the schema. The data's in the public. So this database is actually a full ERP system that does accounting, sales and distribution, purchasing, etc. So there's 548 tables in this. I could just click select all and go, and it would build a landing task for all of those. But just for the sake of not wanting to make you watch 45 minutes of thing, I'm just going to load a couple of tables here and click next. So it's asking me now, do you want to use CDC or reload and compare? So depending on the database we're loading from, we've got different capabilities, and you can see here it's offering type 2 historical data, meaning we can track slowly changing dimensions over time and be able to see, what updates have been applied to our data over time. We're actually loading into Snowflake here as well, so we've kind of got time travel capability. So there's a little bit belt and braces, but we'll leave that on so I can demonstrate to you kind of what that means. So it's automatically created 2 tasks for us, and actually this is loading into Snowflake. And if I click on settings here, it can show you the default database for this project is CCD demo start, so Catalyst Classic Designs demo start. And if I just open Snowflake before I get started, I'll show you that database. So here it is. And if I just refresh that to prove there's nothing in it at all. It's an empty database. These two schemas are generated automatically in Snowflake, so there's no smoke and mirrors here. We are doing this live. And I've told it I want those two tables. So the first thing I need to do is prepare. Actually, I'll prepare both of these tasks together. And when we say prepare, what that does is it goes back to the database, reads the metadata about the tables, and then it creates the SQL to basically prepare those tables to create the landing tables for us to land data into. And I can see from the kind of the transaction history here, the logs, that it's creating the artifacts. It's off and running. We can see from the status up in the top right corner, it's doing that. And we can see the tables it's building here. So it's building a table for sales orders. It's also building a table for sales order line. But actually it's doing more than that as well. So that's now ready to run. I'll set that running straight away so that we don't have to too long to watch that. But if I just quickly go back to the design, you'll see what I was describing earlier, in that this sale order table is the full kind of snapshot of the data at that point in time, and then everything else that is then taken after that point in time is loaded into the change table. And then actually, if we look back to our onboarding storage, is where we then start to kind of recompile the change table with the initial load to be able to see that either type 2 history or a live view as that data is today. So let's just run this onboarding as well. So basically this onboard landing is now running, and it will stay in that running state, basically monitoring the change tables, replicating all of that information through the my onboard storage table now. So if I just go into this and have a quick look, you'll see we've got our main dataset entities. We've got physical objects here. So it's created quite a few tables for us: live history, live views, history views, and actually I can preview the contents of those tables here and see exactly what data has been loaded into those. So this is a view that recompiles back to the kind of latest data that we would then feed into the next stage. So that's great. You know, that took me no time at all. And actually, if I go back to Snowflake now and just refresh this, you'll see basically we've got schemas created here. It's automatically built these tables for us. It's built all the SQL to do this. It's built all the functions to insert data, and it's also built all the views that will recompile that data back together to give us the live view, having integrated our initial load and the change tables. So is that really how do we prove that it's actually doing live changes, recording live changes? So let me just go back to my project again here. So I'll just do a little refresh here. So back to my project. So we can see that the load onboard landing task is running here. So how do we know that this is actually capturing live data? Well, if I open it, you'll see because it's running, it takes me straight into the monitor view. And at this stage, let me introduce you to my side hustle. So obviously, in my spare time, I operate a furniture company that supplies wholesale furniture to high street furniture vendors, and this is the system that we run on. Obviously, none of that's true, but I just want to demonstrate that actually, when you start creating transactions in a system, it's rarely as simple as probably some of the demos you'll see around this, where somebody's just changing the value of one field in a table. When you start actually creating transactions, they tend to be much more dynamic than that, and actually they're creating updates in multiple tables or they go through multiple phases. So that's what I wanted to demonstrate by creating this is basically we can see the full range of actions that are going on here. So I'm just raising a quick order. It's asking me if I want to do an upsell here. Yeah, let's do the upsell, and I'll just confirm that order. So we're just keeping an eye on time. So I've just saved that, and keep an eye on the order number as well, SO2361. So over here I can see, within a few seconds of clicking confirm on that order, it's processed 11 changes. So it's actually captured 2 inserts into the line table with 5 updates to those records, and it's captured 1 insert and 3 updates. So at the moment, those changes are set, landed into our onboard landing. So now we need to basically move them through into our storage location. So the landing is kind of right optimized. It's designed to work in a way that you can put high volumes of records through that with low compute requirement, because it's basically all it's doing is inserting 1 row into a table for every transaction change that's happening. And the onboard storage is then converting that process into a read optimized process that allows you to to be able to reintegrate those records back together. So I've now landed those, and if I go back to my sale order table here, so 2361 was the magic number. And actually I just need to ask it to read a few more records to be sure that we capture that. 2361 is now part of our data set, and obviously that's now on Snowflake. It's part of the change table view. I can access it via the live view, and feed that into the next step of my process.
Great. So that was nice and quick and simple. And I know you spent a bit of time there, Noel, working through that, but that's good to see.
Yeah, so I mean, if you think about what we've achieved there, so basically setting up a connection into CDC that does that initial load, then starts from that point to monitor change tables only, so we're not going back to that main data source. I didn't do an absolute lick of code at all. I've just basically used point and click to build a data warehouse to land data, and then to build that read optimized view. And I did all that in just a few minutes.
Fantastic. But I think in reality, that just kind of shifting data from one source to another isn't a real data warehouse. You want to be able to do those more advanced transformations and change the data ready, putting your business logic in there or the like. So could we see how we would do that and kind of show a more advanced transform?
Yeah, happy to. So actually, you're absolutely correct there in that landing the data is only the first step in the process. It's very unusual that would be the final use case. And actually, every organization has data across multiple sources these days. So it's not just in the core database. They're probably going to have SaaS platforms, non-SQL databases, flat files, etc., that all need transformation. And Qlik Talend Cloud manages all of that. So basically, we can use this tool to build those pipelines out from start to finish. So in the next set of demo steps, I'm going to show you the different tools that are in the box to be able to create those transformations. So again, this is typically no code, low code at most. But basically, I'm going to walk through the process of creating transformed data, defining the relationships within the new entities that I've created, and how we can then walk that through into creating analytics ready data marts, or even for different use cases if that's partner sharing, etc. So back to my Talend Cloud. So let me just log this back in. Actually, let me just come out of that one then. I'm just going to move forward a little while, rather than make you watch me build all this from scratch. I'll take this project that I've just done a little bit more work on to advance it, to be able to demonstrate that. And what we can see here is the lowest arm on this kind of data transformation. That's exactly what I've just demonstrated, apart from it's loading, half a dozen extra tables. But actually, on top of that, I'm showing as well how we can pull data in from applications. So in this case, it's pulling from REST API endpoints, and able to do CDC against some elements of that, reload and compare against other. And you may have data already landed into the organization through other tools, be it a Stitch or a Fivetran or something like that, or ingested into through stages into Snowflake. You've probably got data that's already on-prem that you want to be able to feed into the pipeline. And all those can be pulled in and then integrated through these transformation steps. But it's the transform that I want to focus on as part of this one. So let's have a look inside this sales transform step. And we can see a visual kind of representation of all the different source tables that we have. Um, the stages, which ones are feeding into which part of the process, and then what the output of those entities looks like. I'll start with the simplest, which is just kind of passing through with very little modification. So the green line is indicating we're skipping any of the more advanced transform functions. But that's not to say that we can't do anything with that, or that it's not actually doing anything. So there were maybe 20 or 30 fields, sorry, in the table. So I've just filtered down to which ones I wanted at this stage. And actually I can use this interface to recast into different data types, for example. So I can edit the fields and recast to different types. I've got a function builder here as well. So actually, I can use Snowflake native functions, and this list of functions actually changes depending on which data target you're using. So if you're landing into Databricks, it would change the function list to match Databricks. But basically, you can build complex functions here, even nested functions to be able to manipulate that data. And actually, we can do some rule-based stuff as well. So you don't have to do that field by field. We could build rules. And I've got an example here where basically what I'm saying is, if the data set is called warehouse, I want to basically put a prefix on the front of every field name of warehouse underscore. And if I run that one in conjunction with the uppercase field, which is converting all the field names to uppercase, we can see things like, okay, so actually I've automated the rename and normalization of my data field convention there, and basically that's now ready to analyze. So yeah, Plenty can still doing that, even though it's not going through any of these intervening steps. So the one that I'm really excited about that's come through from Talend Cloud is the transformation flows. So what we can see here is we've got a toolbox of processes that we can drag and drop into the interface. So basically, I'm taking a source data set. I think this is really clever stuff, actually, where in the bottom panel here, I can preview the SQL that it's generating, but also the output step by step of what the SQL will do. So basically, I've got all my data here, and then I can move on to define. I only want to pull through half a dozen columns, or thereabouts. So these are the columns that I'm going to see. I then want to join, and you'll see that each of these processes are declarative, so they don't require coding. They just need you to define from drop downs or selections what you want to put in there. So I'm joining data together, and at each step along the way, I can see what the output will look like until I get to the end point, basically. To be able to see that my final sales order entity will have these fields, and these fields will contain these values, and this is the SQL that it's building along the way. So I think that's important that I stress as well, that what we're not creating here is a proliferation of tables that we're going to find clogging up the database. All these are transient entities. Basically, they're the output of what the SQL will be, and what this screen is doing is layering up complexity of SQL to allow us to get to the final entity. But actually, this is the only one that is then materialized.
No, that's great. No, that's good to see. Good to see how quickly you can create those advanced pipelines, and with virtually no coding, but you still have that control and
Yeah.
visibility of what the SQL is being executed. Yeah, really good.
So just the last one very, very quickly. So I love how they've added this as well. So if you do want to add your own SQL, then you can do, but actually there's a SQL assistant now, which leverages Bedrock, Amazon's Bedrock Gen AI capability. So you can give me a table of product IDs, ranked by total sales, for example, generate, and that will then kind of build the SQL, which you can then click apply and get straight into. So even if you do know SQL really well and are able to code this stuff in your sleep, it still takes time to type out. So
It does.
why not get a helping hand to be able to build this stuff, and then you can kind of paste that in by clicking apply and kind of and then just tweak it as you need it to do. So that's building our entities, but actually then we come through to the model piece of this where we can define relationships in the data. So what we can see here is I've got a child entity of sale order. I know it needs to be associated with customers, products, etc. And it's just a case of selecting from the drop down that I want to build a relationship between sale order and customer. So from the key field in the customer table, it knows how that should be joined. I just need to tell it which is the equivalent field in the sale order table. It builds that relationship for us, and we can see here a visual representation of that. And this is really, really important stuff, actually, because it simplifies the final piece of that transformation pipeline, which is when we create the sales marts, or the data marts, sorry. I've got a couple of data marts here. I've got one that's fully denormalized, so it's taking a fact table appending all the attributes of the customer and product and warehouse records to each row, so that we get a flat table out. That's really useful stuff for kind of people that maybe not at the highest level of data literacy but are comfortable analyzing data in Excel. You can give them access to that table through the catalog, and they'll be able to build their own analytics out of that. But if you want to do something a little bit more traditional, such as building a star-shaped schema, you can do that through here. I've got one that I made a start on, actually, but this is now where we can see that if I want to add in the final part of my data model, which is the customer, you can see that basically it understands that the customer quartile is a connection onto the customer schema, onto the customer table, sorry. And if I say I want to add that in, and then go and look at my schema, you can see basically it's saying, okay, how do you want to associate that? I've got a recommendation for you. Is that any good? And because I defined how those are joined in the previous section, I can now just simply select, yeah, happy to go with that. And importantly as well, the settings here allow us to now publish automatically to the catalog. So that's really important in the next section, which is when the output of this is ready for our consumers, data consumers, to be able to use. We don't have any additional steps to make that available. That is now ready for our users.
Be good to see. It'd be good to see that catalog now up and running and working. But
yeah, so as I say, the data pipeline there is fundamentally a SQL builder, but there's lots of tools in that toolbox that allow us to build that. So it's great that we can do that and do it quite quickly too. But fundamentally, the whole point of that is to make that data available to end users, isn't it? And the end users are going to ask the question, why should I trust this data? Where does it come from? Is it the right data for my use case? And kind of understanding some of these kind of questions that we hear so often related to data. And that's why Qlik have created or integrated new tools into Qlik Talend Cloud that provide full visibility data lineage, but also some data quality elements as well, which I want to move on to show you next. So in the lineage demo, I'm going to show how you can look at data in your catalog, follow that all the way back to source and understand how that got created, and be able to understand how it's transformed. But also it's a two-way capability as well. So you can look at data coming out of a source system and be able to track it all the way through to applications to see if I make changes within my extracts, what are the downstream impacts of that. And we can view all that all the way down to field level. So let's have a quick look at that. So I've got my catalog open here, and these are some of the entities that have been created by that pipeline. So you can see we've got the fact-based data model that we created as one of those data marts. And actually, if I open that, you'll see the catalog, we've got a few different capabilities. So we can see some of the field names in there and what kind of data is stored in there. We can even profile that, so we get a bit of an understanding, of the kind of values that are in there. And actually, if we wanted as well, we can flip that across to kind of data values, or even previews of data. But the really interesting bit here is lineage now. So we've got this visual view, the flow of how data has come through here. So within my data pipeline, we can see that this has been generated so it's a sales mart denormalized that we're loading this table from. These are all the fields in it. We can see that that got generated by the sales transform. And actually the sales transform there was compiled out of multiple tables here. So maybe that I'm specifically interested in seeing how the product field got created. So I can actually create a new node within that just to focus on how did that product entity get created. And again, we can follow that all the way back and see at field level, which fields from which table have been included and what did they become. And it may be then that we're not sure whether the field we're looking at and interested in came from this table or this table. So actually, if we've got the right level of authorization within the environment, we can click directly from here straight through into the data task that created that. So really, really powerful stuff to be able to see all the way back to the data, to the source database system where that data's come from.
Much better than just a connection string and a table name then.
Isn't it? So the other side of that is obviously, so I'm a data engineer. I'm thinking I'd like to make a change to the product table or to the sales order table. Let's have a look in that and see the impact of that. So where is this data actually used? And I can run an impact analysis, and it's telling me here if it follows that pipeline flow all the way through, we can see it's in use in two separate applications, and actually we've got 4 data sets that are relying on that data as well. So before I make a change, I can understand the impact of that downstream and make sure that I'm not causing unanticipated carnage for the users by changing my data sets.
Really helps with maintenance, doesn't it? And understanding what changing that element is going to happen. But I'll let you load up there.
Yeah. So as I say, it's you can start right at the end in the analytics layer or the pre-analytics layer in your data catalog to be able to see where that data come from, or as an engineer see all the downstream consumers of that data to make sure you're not having any unanticipated impacts. And it just as Lee you said there, just make sure that you're not creating problems, and you've got full governance and visibility of that data from end to end.
Cool.
The other element we talked about there is that data quality. So we actually think that this is a significant enough subject on its own to warrant its own webinar. So we're not going to cover it in too much detail this time, but just suffice to say that actually part of that process allows you to do table level data quality assessment, so you can see where you've got invalid or missing values within your data on a table by table basis, or even field by field and row by row, as you can see in this snapshot of that capability. So more on that next time, and please feel free to sign up for that one.
Yeah, look out for that. Look out for that one. As I said, that's going to take half an hour in its own right to look at quality. How data stewards can use that and impact your quality of your data, then monitor the quality of your data. But I suppose the next element is, this is great, Noel. We've showed kind of a very simplistic demonstration, but in reality, doing a data warehouse takes time, doesn't it? So normally you've normally got tens of tables, maybe hundreds of tables. But how long does it actually really take? Because I know in the real world, and the graphic here is a bit of truth, I think, in this one. This sometimes can take months to build a warehouse with all of the transformations. But how long does it actually take, Noel?
Well, you're absolutely right, Lee. I think I've heard data engineers and data administrators talk about 18 months to build a data warehouse. Obviously, that depends on the complexity. The one that I've demonstrated today, I actually took a liberty of building that while recording my screen. Lee challenged me to be able to complete this in under an hour. I think he was thinking, no way, no, there's no way you'll get that.
I did think no, well, absolutely not, because doing this in under an hour is challenging to do it. How many tables did you use here, Noel, from the source system?
Yeah, I started with 10 tables, and you can see, I'm doing some real life kind of integrations here. So I'm actually not, it's not just for show. This is me, if I was a data engineer having to build these in real life, I would be aliasing my fields, as you can see there. I'm actually doing some functions on some kind of JSON type data fields to extract the text values that I require, building all my keys. We can see the values of those previews as I'm going along. So sometimes it's erroring to show that you've not quite done it right. But then, if I'm happy with the output, I can move on. And you can see, this is not smoke and mirrors. I've actually made errors in there, had to go back and correct them a few times as well.
As we all do, as we all do. Good.
Yeah, so and we're watching this through. So, the challenge was, can you get it done in under an hour to build two analytics ready data marts? And actually gotten moving on to the scheduling piece there, 44 minutes
Wow.
to
Yeah.
land those 10 tables and create analytics ready data marts.
Wow, that's brilliant. And that's a really good demonstrator of how quickly you can do that. And that video is really cool. I suppose this is the kind of the thank you stage and any questions. I can see some questions coming in. You can use the QR code at the top right to book us directly if you'd like to talk anything about Talend or ClickSAS or anything you've seen in the video today. That'd be fantastic. Just do that, or you can LinkedIn us as well. So, but let's go back to the questions. We've got a few minutes left. We've got about 34 minutes left. So, Noel, what questions did I see coming through during that?
Yeah, so the first question we've had here is, can it land data as QVDs or use
Yep.
QVD
Good
data?
question.
And actually it can. So for those that are already using Qlik, there's no need to land data out into an external data warehouse and use a third party. You can land this straight into a QVD layer and then consume that directly into Qlik. So yeah, absolutely. That is integrated. Actually, it works. It still does CDC capture, but actually the reload is capped at around 15 minutes, or the refresh cadence is capped at around 15 minutes to make sure that all updates are completed before the next kind of refresh takes place. But fully supported, absolutely.
Right. Do we have any others?
Yeah. So the next question that I can see here is it integrated with Qlik dashboards? So,
Good question. I'll fill that one then. So with Qlik dashboards, yeah, I suppose the question there is dashboards. Can you access those? And yes, I think I know what the question is. Is it one platform? Yes. So you've got Qlik dashboards and Talend Cloud, and it's all one SaaS product. So you can flick between the two if that answers the question. I think it probably does. But yeah, once you've landed that data, you're not going to a separate portal or different window, different tool, etc. You're within the Qlik SaaS environment.
yeah, and that catalog that I showed is the anchor point between the two sides of the platform. Basically, the output of the data integration is then the starting point. But actually, that lineage piece as well does follow all the way through from a Qlik application. So you can have a Qlik application, open the lineage in it, and see it all the way back to the database. Really
Yeah,
clever
that's a
stuff.
good point. That's a good point. Yeah, I forgot about that. Thanks, Noel. Anything
Uh,
else?
yeah,
Quickly, go
so
back to the land.
so Ricardo Blake's asking, can you link directly to SQL and other data source? Yeah, so the data source that I showed there, it was a Postgres database, but all the major databases are supported. So whether that's DB2, MySQL, Oracle, SQL Server, all of those are possible sources. And then in terms of the targets that you can land into, it's all the major cloud vendors such
Yeah,
as Amazon, Databricks, Microsoft Fabric, Synapse, you name it, Google BigQuery. So they're all supported.
I
But
think if
that's
you
not
can
to,
connect to it in Qlik, I think it's an easy way to think about this is if you can connect to it in Qlik currently today, if you're the Qlik user. Sorry, I didn't catch the name who asked that question. You can connect to it in Qlik Talend Cloud because it's the same connectors. It's the same. It's literally the same connectors coded. Okay.
yeah.
Final question. If I'd ask another question, one.
So we've got a question. Can I still use Talent Studio with this?
Oh, good question. Yeah. So we must have someone who's on Talend on the call. Short answer is yes. So you can use Talend Studio alongside Qlik Cloud. The two are not they are two separate interfaces, two separate fundamental front ends, but they don't exclude each other, so they do complement each other. So great.
Yeah. And it's a single license now as well. So when you
It
do
is a good point. Yeah.
Cloud, you're buying access to both toolkits there, and you can use the right tool for the right job from either of those platforms.
We're just out of time, just gone over slightly, so we'll hold any questions there. If there are any more questions, we'll get back to you directly if you give your name. If not, please do chase us up. Please just send us an email, put a meeting in there, or LinkedIn us and bounce us a message. But thank you for your time and patience today, and hopefully you've found the power of Qlik Talend Cloud and how you can use that to build your data warehouse extremely quickly. 44 minutes, apparently. No, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers now. Bye-bye.